Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for being here. The conversation we had last week about the absolute certainty and, of course, the how it connects to our DNA. Between then and now, quite a bit of other stuff has come up for me, and I want to talk a little bit about them as well. Having had that background and that kind of conversation, I want to talk today about what I call the inner work. And I have to say to you that um, uh, when I was 17 years old, I entered the mystery schools and I began to study, dedicating myself. And at the time, they were calling it not ascension per se, but the term that was being used at the time was cosmic consciousness. And I remember there were weekly lessons that I received in the mail. I had in my sanctum set up at home. And I used to spend time reading my lessons, doing my breathing exercise, my meditation, daily practice that I was supposed to be doing. All the while, I kept hearing all the time, or reading for that matter. And when I went to the lodge, there was a local lodge in New York I used to go to, everybody talking about the work. And I think for my entire tenure in the organization, which was probably something like 13 or 14 years, no one could explain to me what the work was, but it was talked about all the time. I never read any lessons that talked about this, and it's about the inner work that needs to be done. At the time, the mystery school, the way I was being trained, was about the mind controlling your emotion. If the inner work is about, so basically what the exercise and the training, even Dr. Stone did the same thing. What is that book again called by Napoleon Hill, which is about thinking? I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, so the idea is that with your mind, you can control your emotion. So there were lots of exercise on how to do this. Reprogram your subconscious mind. It almost was like particularly when I was studying with Dr. Stone, it went a little bit deeper. With the mystery school, it was just mostly surface stuff, breathing exercise, et cetera, et cetera. It was talked about, but it was never addressed. When I studied with Dr. Stone, it was more mind by doing lists of things that could possibly be wrong in your subconscious mind. They acknowledge in the subconscious mind that there were lots of feelings, emotions, and things that were there in your emotional body, but how to deal with them, how to interpret them, and because your emotional body happens to be your energy body as well. It's the same thing. So I spent a lot of times with Dr. Stone thinking that I was reorganizing my subconscious mind by creating this list of possible, going over my archetypes and the positive and negative aspect of my archetype, the positive and the negative aspects of the rays of God, the negative and the positive aspect, and in that way trying to figure out where my emotions would be, whether I had positive emotion that were connected to this archetype or negative emotion, and sometimes it would be both. And it was the idea that if you acknowledge it and see it, you would not allow these feelings to rise up, because you would create a bubble around your subconscious mind that every time these emotions were to come through, you would actually feel it and see it and judge as I, the chooser, you that's awakened, you would choose whether you want to express that feeling or not. I have to tell you, it worked to a point, but I can tell you that when deeper and more profound, impactful triggers occur in the outside world, it did not work. So for a moment there was a kind of a veneer of mind control or mental mastery over the emotional body. But it took a lot of inner guidance for me to go into a deeper understanding of the actual nature of our emotion and how the vast field we call the energy body has in it all of our emotion. And these emotions are like knots, if you want, or ripple that exist in that field. And if something is too knotted and it shows up as a crisis or emotional reactive episode, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing the way I was trained up to that point for many, many years, that it was a bad thing that my mind had to figure out a way to control it. And part of it is is a different understanding that I begin to get from my guide, that the feelings and the emotion that you have, when they show up, they are trying to restore balance and equilibrium. They are trying to find a way for you to find healing. So when your emotion go up and your voice goes up, and sometimes we don't see it, and someone else has to mirror it to us and tell us you're raising your voice. You're emotionally out of control. You know, someone else has to say it to us. We don't see it. And so it's a matter of trying to interpret and using other people as a mirror, and also having a different relationship to what emotions are. And as long as you understood them as being a way through which your inner intelligence that exists in you is trying to teach you the areas in your subconscious mind where there is fragmentation or brokenness. It was a way for that inner intelligence to teach you. And therefore, if that is the case, every emotional crisis that you have is an opportunity for you to grow, to learn, and to expand. It's a different understanding for this idea of my control over emotion. You see what I mean? And so it's important for us to, at least for me, it was important in my journey to kind of like, there was a point where I turned a corner. I went in a different direction. I'm like, particularly with all of the emotions and the feeling, although I started way before the last 4 years and the crisis that's happening with to the planet. I started that more than 15 years ago. I turned a corner. I'm like, this is not working. I have, since 2008, even if not before that, I decided, okay, I need to do more emotional intelligence work, which is to actually create a connection where I can sit with the feeling without thinking of it as a bad feeling. You know how people say, I have a bad feeling about this, and we're trying to suppress all bad feelings, and we're trying to only seek good feelings? I can tell you that it may not be possible to do altogether. In the understanding, the new understanding that I have, all feelings are valid. And when you're experiencing them, you need to go into them and allow the judgment that you have on them to dissipate. But in order for that to happen, you have to first create or have a mind and heart coherence. This is why when I'm guiding your meditation, I ask for your entire head to drop in the middle of your heart to create a syncing feeling between your mind, which is your cognitive function, because your cognitive function does one thing: it adds all the time. It adds and subtract. It's constantly trying to analyze data, what things that are happening, and it's adding and subtracting all the time to seek a way for you to survive. Whereas when you go and you sync it with your heart has an inner intelligence that allow an expansion of that function to be more related to feeling, and it creates coherence. And when that coherence gets created, it brings in a different kind of intelligence. So, and I'm saying this because I want you, I'm trying to illuminate the entire process for you. And I think it's important now in the light of all the things that are happening around the planet that will happen. Some of them will kick off some very powerful feelings of disempowerment in us. We have to figure out a way to interpret them. Because any questions or any comments so far?
Would you repeat what you said, if you remember what you said? The heart expands the feeling to have an, I didn't understand the rest of that.
Yeah, your mind is cognitive and it's analysis. It's adding and subtracting. Your heart, when you allow the coherence, there is an inner intelligence that exists in you. And it allows an acceptance of feeling, not as a interpretation of bad feeling have to be exercised for me, but as all feelings having value as a teacher, having a lesson that they want to teach you.
Thank you. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Anybody else? So it's important for us to kind of like, create that connection between the two as a way to, no matter what the feeling is, we're going to sit with the feeling and we're going to try to, from that coherence, we're going to have, whereas in your mind, you're always seeking for threat. You're seeking for danger. You're looking for a way to overcome and to survive. When you enter in coherence, the coherence and the heart allow you 360 degrees to sense everything that's around you in your emotional body. And whatever fear that it is triggering, or for that matter, survival mechanism, or false belief that is being generated, because a lot of time when we think we need to survive, we create false interpretation that allows us to survive. And again, when a behavior gets repeated over a period of time, it becomes a new law in the subconscious mind, and your body emotionally starts reacting in a way that's so inappropriate and out of whack to the trigger. The trigger could be something minor, and the way you interpret it and create it into something really big, there's a disconnect between the cause and the effect. And if that is happening, it's because there is a false belief somewhere in your emotional body that when the trigger happens, it's some kind of danger. Maybe at one point it was necessary for you so that you can survive, but at this moment, it's not necessary. So it's important for us to kind of like understand this from a different perspective and walk away. This is an old method the idea of mind control over the emotional body from a cognitive function disconnected to the heart. There has to be coherence. There has to be coherence. If there is no coherence, you will interpret it completely incorrectly. Moreover, since our emotions or the ripples of the energy body, when you move through emotional intelligence, which is the management of your emotion, so that you can find healing and you can repair and unknot conditions, false beliefs, fear, and survival mechanism that no longer serve. So when you get to that point, then your energy body increase, your emotional body increase. And therefore you are able to ascend and elevate from that point of view as well. Any questions, any comments?
Well, I want to say, Pierre, that one of the things that I tend to do that I have found to be very helpful is when there are, various types of emotional, I guess, issues or, where I sense there are, what I tend to do is first acknowledge it. And then I will ask a question of myself that I will take into deep meditation. And it doesn't mean that it's just one time meditating, but I form the question, like a question could be, what is it within me that I need to understand, or would be very helpful to understand with the greater clarity, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then I just sit, with it, and I don't constantly go back with it, but I put it there in the universe, for me to deal with. And what happens over time, it's important to continue to listen, but it becomes clear. And the guidance with that also comes, and I found that to be very, very helpful, just to query yourself, not just put it there in the universe, in a very sincere way. And it will begin to clarify. You begin to see it and understand it a lot better. At least I found that to be helpful, and it works for me.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Esther, thank you for that. What you're saying is that you're acknowledging it's the emotional intelligence process. Now we are born with an IQ level that cannot change. Emotional intelligence, however, can change. And you can train yourself to get better at it. And you can increase and get better and better. The average person on the planet reacts from two core emotions, fear or love. So in the fear side, you have fight or flight, attack, defense, survival. In the love side, you have maybe joy, companionship, and if you're lucky, you might experience compassion, gratitude, or mercy. But all of the other emotions are just nothing more than an intellectual interpolation. Okay? Magnanimity. Most of us don't understand what that means. We can read a Webster dictionary definition of what it is, but we don't really viscerally know it. And we have to And if we want to learn it, we have to allow the process that you're talking about is the process that's going to teach it. As I've taught all of you over the past 10 years about doing the query, the internal query. And it has to do with us. Again, the first thing you need to start is that no feeling is bad. All feelings are valid. So whatever it is that you're feeling, stop trying to suppress it because it's a bad feeling. So whatever it is, acknowledging it as it's a teaching module. It's going to teach me something. And then you need to, again, create the coherence, which, as you said, go in meditation. That's creating the coherence where you go deep within yourself. In the technique I use is the heart and mind, the mind dropping into the heart. And then once you begin to acknowledge as if your eyes are now in your heart space, and that you're seeing the world from that standpoint, it creates a completely different way of seeing the world. And once that happens, then you begin to think of the feeling that you're having. If it's so-called a feeling that's triggering you into being overwhelmed or whatever, you sit with the feeling and think of, again, asking question to yourself, where do I feel it in my body? Or for that matter, sometimes we don't feel it in our body, sometimes it's slightly outside. Is it in my body or is it outside of my body? As a better way to start. And what am I feeling? And I have to tell you, depending on the feelings and the emotion, particularly if you're grieving or one of those big emotions, you can actually feel 2 or 3 things at the same time. And it's extremely, given the fact that we have a limited repertoire of feelings that we really viscerally understand, it's extremely complex for us to try to understand when 2 or 3 of these things are together. We just know there's something that we feel that's really big, that's really troubling us. We don't know what it is. It's giving us a bad mood. We just don't know what it is. So by the query, and the query is your cognitive function, but connected now to your feeling, plugged into the feeling. And you're asking that feeling question. And you're asking it, this is where the coherence comes in. You're asking a question like, is it one feeling or a combination of multiple feelings? And if it's a combination, what is the first feeling? What is the second feeling? Is there any other ones? And you wait each time for answers. And once you have them, then you can begin to say, okay, because grief, there are 5 stages of grief. The first one is denial. The second one might be anger, and then bargaining, and then before you get to acceptance. So you might be angry and in denial at the same time before you can get to acceptance. So multiple feelings, and sometimes if you're intuitive and you're sensitive enough, you may think that you're going crazy because 1 minute this one feeling is here, the next minute some other feeling comes the exact opposite, and you may think of yourself being schizophrenic if you're really in touch with your feelings. Now here is the thing. Let's say you're feeling attacked, okay? You're feeling like you're a victim and you're attacked. You're being attacked. So the thing that we need to do at that moment is to begin to ask ourselves, is the feeling legitimate? In other words, in the real world right now, am I really being attacked? Am I really being victimized at this very moment? You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of time it's perceived attack. We are not running in the savannah anymore. You don't have a pride of lion or predators that are after you. You may not physically be under attack, but you may perceive yourself as being emotionally attacked. And sometimes the attack that we're perceiving that someone is doing is not, it's an appearance of an attack because they're saying words that are similar to a moment in our past history, in our early childhood history, that trigger an actual real attack by, let's say, family member or caregiver. And we blow up and explode as if that we were still that child and we needed support that we didn't receive at the time. That's an illegitimate suffering because it's not real. The condition that you're facing at the moment does not correlate to your emotional reaction. It's not that when you have illegitimate suffering, it's not that the emotion that you're feeling is necessarily illegitimate. There's a part of it because what your mind is doing at the moment, what your inner mind is doing at the moment is to remind you that event that's happening outside is reminding you that there's a part inside of you that's not healed. That part is not healed. Look, Pierre, that part is not healed. Your reaction to it is, you explode and you go off and blah, 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 and you vomit out to somebody else who's attacking you because you want to defend yourself. All of the stuff, and yet you're ignoring that there is a brokenness and a fragmentation that happened earlier that's caused this reaction to be so big. And that's the point. Any questions or any comments? Okay. Yes? No? So we need to be very careful when we are and again, the reason why so many people, it's easier path to kind of do the mind control, your mental body is gonna come in and somehow organize your emotional body from the top down. Whereas this path is the real path because you're not going to organize it. You're going to try to pigeonhole it, but the emotion themselves will explode at multiple moments. I have seen my own teacher in the that were in the mystery school, and even with Dr. Stone, I've seen people who are supposed to have done that process, who have exploded emotionally in ways that were unbecoming of an ascended being. And you can tell that they didn't master anything because they didn't do the real work. This is the real work. Because in the process of going back over and trying to find, okay, I'm reacting in such a way, is that reaction legitimate to the event that's happening outside? Or is it hiding a deeper secret? And it's just a camouflage for something deeper. I've said this particularly as it relates to addiction, that the addiction, when somebody's an addict and they're addicted to food, to alcohol, to drug, to sex, to a behavior, that addiction is a cover-up for a deeper hurt. And it's that brokenness and that hurt that needs to be solved and addressed because it's a survival mechanism for a moment in crisis where your emotional development became arrested. And if you can find a way to address this and realize what that event was that caused it to be arrested, it will allow true healing to begin. First of all, the acknowledgement that there is a brokenness is immense. It's not about what's happening in the outside world. It's not about this person that I think is attacking me or the situation I think is victimizing me, but it's about a victimization that happened way prior to that. And if I can acknowledge that's where it's coming from. Now think of your life and of recent big emotion that you had to deal with. And if you have ever felt victimized, that victimization probably was not about that particular situation. It's an early thing in your childhood that you're not addressing. And if you're not addressing it, it will show up again in a different way until that original point where the fragmentation occurred, where you became emotionally arrested. That's what you need to solve. That's the real work of ascension. And if you can go back and do this, then suddenly you're going to get yourself to a point where the real healing will happen. Because what we do when we are emotionally triggered like this, I mean, we were emotionally victimized like this, we develop a survival mechanism. We create a false belief. If this happened, do this. If ever there is a trigger where you feel, for me, I can tell you what my thing was. When I realized what my dad did to my mom, my dad tried to kill my mother in front of me when I was a 4-year-old boy. After seeing this and realize how emotionally dependent my family, my mom in particular, was to my dad, I swore to myself, I will become self-sufficient. I didn't know what the word was at the time, but there's a part of me that understood that's what I needed to do. I will never depend on anybody else. And for me to do this, the way I interpret it, for me to do this, give to everybody all the time. Because if you wait to receive, you're going to become dependent. And people can actually hurt you. Like my dad just hurt my mom. And there's a part of me that was still doing this as recently as a few years ago. Like compulsively, giving compulsively, and not allowing anybody to really give to me. I'm better at it now. I'm still repairing this narrative, this false belief. And I'm using this as an example to help you understand how deep and how profound these things are. Now, if you can figure out the false belief, then you ask, when you are in coherence, you ask your higher self, God, Spirit, help me find the appropriate reaction so that I can find healing. There's a false belief, find me the ascended belief so that I can walk away from this and move into that. For me, give and receive in a balanced manner. I have to accept both. Any questions and comments? I know that this is triggering because I'm asking you to be so self-reflective to moments of crisis that we may have. All of us have felt victimized at some point. Or for that matter, sometimes we go under attack. Because attack is a loss of control and an attempt at gaining it back. So when we feel victimized and we think we lost control, another way to deal with it is to attack. To become like this fierce thing and just go after people and attack them. But did we really have control over things to begin with? Because if you were not really being victimized, you are really reliving an original arrested emotional state, then there is no reason to attack.
I would just ask if this isn't an opportunity not only to help ourselves identify what is the trigger beneath a feeling or an emotion that arises, but to witness it and see it in others and have more compassion for their process so that we are divorced or separated from the reactive state.
It's beautifully said, Janice. I couldn't say it any better. Okay. And because it's the truth. And this is by doing this kind of inner work, we will begin to expand into feeling and emotion. For example, what you just described there is having true empathy and compassion. So when you begin to yourself to understand the degree to which an arrested emotional state can cause major trigger in you and derailment and actually poison your life, you will now be able to see it in others. Because without you living through it, you can't see it. It's all cognitive, disconnected to the heart. This is why you want a heart and mind coherence. And when you begin to see it in others, you have the compassion and the empathy to understand. I had shared with you last week, and I've been saying this for a while there, that for the past 4 years, for all of the huge emotional turmoil that I have gone through, I have my heart open in ways that I didn't think was possible. I understand the suffering of the world in a way that I didn't know was possible. I was talking to a client of mine about some situation with one of their family members that couldn't do this and wasn't capable and abandoned that and abandoned the other, could not interpret, could not, I don't understand, a grown man could not figure out. And these are simple things that in all of us can do. And I remember saying to the person I was talking to, I said, I understand him. Because there is a lot of things for the past 4 years that I faced that were so emotionally overwhelming that they paralyzed me. The simplest thing in the world, I didn't have the strength, the clarity, nor the emotional drive to be able to accomplish something that's so simple. I could not do it.
You know what I would ask, Pierre? Is this a design from God that, like Job, puts you through a turmoil, a challenge, or chaos, so that you will develop that understanding to be able to assist others? Or is it the grace that comes after you have healed your challenge to be able to then use it positively? It sounds like it's the same thing, but I don't know if I said it correctly.
It's both of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually both of them. They are slightly different, but it's both of them.
Mm.
It's a way for you, because in the process of doing this, because whatever happened in your early childhood that caused you to have all of these false beliefs and have all this emotional trauma, that's your karma. The family members, the friends, the caregivers, teachers, the people who knowingly or unknowingly cause you to have trauma, these people, you've danced with them in other lifetimes. You pitched wobble with them before.
Mhm.
So they are part of your karma. So ultimately, if you really have healed and repaired the situation, the people that were in your past, deep in your past, you're going to forgive them. That caused the traumas to happen. You will begin to forgive them. My healing with my dad happened 3 years before he transitioned out of this planet. And I've shared that story, but I don't want to insert it in this class because it's going to take too long to explain. But I was able to finally get to a point where I was able to forgive him and understand that he's a broken man. And all the abuse came, and I remember saying to my half-sister, he was in the hospital, he had had a stroke. When I discovered this, she was driving back after my visit with my dad. She was there, and she was driving back to the train. I remember telling her, I said to her, my dad, the reason for all the abuse, and up to that point, none of us knew this, but because I was at a point where I reached an epiphany, that epiphany gave me insight. Because emotionally, I was supposed to react a certain way because I couldn't stand him. I kept still thinking of the abuse, and I reacted. The only thing I could cause myself to do is that I remember saying to myself, I'm not gonna react. I'm not gonna emotionally react. And by not reacting, I ended up cleaning him because he had soiled himself because of some procedure he went through. And my sister and I cleaned him, we put him back to bed. All of these things happen. And at the time, I was not even thinking about it. I just went on automatic, right? And when the whole thing happened, I'm on the train with her, in front of the train station with her. I'm like, did I just clean my father? Somebody I couldn't be in the same room with him? And it was like an epiphany. Something just popped, and I said to her, listen, I think my father is schizophrenic. He must have been not diagnosed. He's schizophrenic. And my half-sister at that moment felt that was what I was saying is true. She burst out and started crying. And she said, oh my God, Pia, this would explain the violence. It would explain everything. So I went in the train. When I got home, I had all these messages from her. Call me immediately, Pia, when you get home. I called her. I said, what's the matter? She said, you were right. How did you know? I said, no, what? I completely forgot what I said. And she said, I just grilled my mother when I came back from the hospital. You were right. Dad has been taking antipsychotic drugs for the past, finally diagnosis 15 years ago. He's taking all these antipsychotic drugs. And my healing came with that understanding. Because mental illness is a brain chemistry imbalance. My karma with him was done. I don't blame somebody because they are diabetic or they have a heart condition and they are behaving in a certain manner. I can't blame him for this. You're completely right, Janice. So it helped resolve my karma and it helped me move on. And my capacity to understand and to have empathy changed completely. And my relationship with him ended up changing completely from that moment on. So every time I went to his house, I was able to shave him, help clean him. I didn't have a problem doing any of this because I didn't hate him anymore. And I don't expect to have that kind of relationship or that kind of toxic dynamic from in any future life. I don't expect to be on Earth in future life. I will go to somewhere else. But you understand what I'm saying? The entanglement, the cording of the karma is resolved.
Yes, and in addition to that wonderful aspect, you are in a position also to help others and understand others that may be in a similar position, whether the conditions are the same or not. There is a, a tool, almost, that you have, a facility that you didn't have before that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to tell you something funny about this, Janice, because my half brother, who also was in the same situation because he grew around this around my dad with the same violence as well. I was trying to share with him my epiphany. And I kept saying to him, you can do this. You have to let go and do this. And he looked at me, he said, you're just a better man than me. I can't do this. So his karma with my dad will continue, okay? Because my dad is no longer on the planet. So whatever the case may be, he was not ready. And he acknowledged it. He was not ready.
Yeah.
So
All of that is very beautiful. But I do understand that sometimes that realization, about seeing things and especially, well, self as well as others. I mean, sometimes it feels very weighty, though, if that makes sense.
did you say
You know,
weighty?
it's weighty, yeah.
Yes.
You know, like it's heavy. It's like it's really heavy.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
to come to that realization of that
Yes.
understanding,
Yes.
and there, is more work for you to do, but it's just weighty.
Yes. And this is why I say that it's an emotional minefield. And I have to say, this is why most people don't want to do this work. Because instead of blaming the world, you have to look within. This is why it's called inner work. You have to, the cause of this, whatever circumstance happening outside, the cause of this, there is a part of it that I'm complicit in. I may not be conscious of it, but there's a part of it I'm responsible for. And I need to find that part to begin the real healing. Because that whatever is happening that's loud, that's causing me to react, it's the universe trying to point out to me that I am not in psychic and spiritual psychology equilibrium. And I need to restore that equilibrium. And when you can do this, your energy body becomes immense, and you can begin, because the energy body is the key to manifesting anything in this planet, and it's the key also to create our own empathy. Janice was talking about how to interpret, to help other people. This gives us in the next topic, takes us to the next topic, which is social intelligence, instead of just emotional intelligence, which is our own inner journey. Social intelligence, it's done through your heart and mind coherence and what are called mirror neuron, who are and the amygdala in our brain is very chatty, and it's chatting all the time with everyone around us, also with an amygdala, to try to sense and feel the emotions and the feeling that they have. And we're sharing this all the time. Scientists and neurologists have studied this quite a bit. And this is the way you develop real empathy. It's through the mirror neuron that we have. And if you are limited in your emotional repertoire, you will not see it or feel it. But if you have expanded, you are able to have more empathy. And not only more empathy, because you went through the same thing, you will know, your mind and heart coherence will tell you how to reach out to the person and bring them into a process of their own healing. None of us are really the healer. The healer, even me as a healer, I'm not really the healer. I am just the Sherpa that leads you into a connection to your own inner self, which is your real healer. So when you have empathy and you're trying to help someone, You're not the healer. You don't take credit, and if you're walking around like a peacock thinking, I did this, and you failed. You're not the healer. All you are is the Sherpa, the guide, and you can point to them. I may have went to something like this, and this is what I did. And doing it will be your responsibility. And I'm passing the baton to you. Sometimes having a simple conversation or acknowledgement for the person who's going through the crisis and telling them that you understand or that they are not alone it's 50% of their burden is removed. Because a lot of time when people are going emotionally to something, they think they're alone. Or that there's something wrong with them. They are defective. They're broken. I'm going to go right there and say to you, all of us are broken. We all have trauma. We all have things inside of us that are arrested over development at some point. Because no one grew up around a perfect family. So whatever that is, when you acknowledge this to yourself, it allows you to find self-acceptance. Before you can actually help the other person, you have to accept yourself as not being perfect. This is immense, particularly for those of us who are in the light community who are trying to emulate the path of a great teacher. We keep thinking all the time we have to be perfect already. And you have to do actually the exact opposite with this process. You have to acknowledge that you're broken and you're imperfect. And one piece at the time, you're going to repair to keep moving forward. Any questions, any comments?
I have one. Do you ever get to the point where you can just, in other words, does it keep expanding no matter what you do? Because more and more you see, more and more. Am I asking the question correctly? Not correctly, but am I making sense with my question?
Repeat this again. Is there a point where what?
Is there a point where you get where you won't be I mean, it seems to me as it's a forever ending process when you go through these, because you're always going to see, well, in my case, I see things that I may have not seen before, and it keeps going and going.
Yes.
So just asking, is there ever an ending process in this? Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, it's the magician pulling the handkerchief out of his pocket. Okay?
Oh, okay.
There's another handkerchief tied behind the first one, and and so on and so forth. What I can say to you is that the moment you begin the process and you know what you're doing,
Okay.
you don't even think about how many handkerchiefs that there is. You just keep moving with the process. What I can say to you is that if you keep doing this, like I remember one time I was counting initially. One time I had like something like doing this emotional intelligence stuff. I must have had something like more than 10 major breakthroughs in 1 year. After a while, it didn't matter anymore because I'm doing it anyway. I'm not even counting because it's no longer relevant. I just want to be more cohesive as a being.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to be fragmented anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it doesn't matter how long it takes or how long it doesn't take. It's irrelevant. And by the way, given everything that's happening with the planet right now, with these major so-called apparent life-threatening situations or instability or insecurities, you can move to years and years of karma in months. What would take multiple lifetimes can happen in months.
And with the torsion field, help that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. because
And
it's
Pierre, when you,
neutrality toward yourself. And again, one of the biggest problem we have, and this is the reason why it's that we have shame and undeservedness. And the first thing we need to do when we see the brokenness is that we have to accept that we're not perfect. I'm not Jesus yet. I'm not Kuan Yin. I'm not Melchizedek. I'm just a human being. And as a human being, I'm having this moment. And it's pointing out to something that happened to me early in my childhood when I was victimized. God help me. Help me. That like Esther was saying before, ask the universe for help. Help me. And in the process of doing this, the help will show up.
and Pierre, though, when you said, let me see what I don't. Well, it's fragmented now in my head exactly what you said, but you said that the work, and I'm rephrasing it. The work is continuous, is what you were saying, and that's at least how I'm interpreting it at this moment. And when you said that, I smiled because I'm saying, well, we are humans after all, and we're here to do the work. And when the work is finished, I don't think we'll be here any longer. So for me, I think as long as we are here, there will be that work for us to do as human beings.
Yes. And
because that is the work.
absolutely. And this is the real work. It's not just when I was in the mystery school, because I was so young, I just, I had just applied for college. Okay. And I remember, I was interpreting the work as being something that you do in school, like they give you a homework assignment. And because they were giving me teaching, I thought the work was about making sure that I accomplished these tasks. It took me a long time to figure out it was this internal stuff. A long time. Because even when somebody was acknowledging, the teachings were acknowledging, there was an emotional, there was the emotional body. It was that the mind that was supposed to control the emotion. And as I said, to a degree, that part is true. But in the world we're living right now, that entire paradigm is out of the window. Because the crises that are happening around the world are touching everyone. And they're touching everyone in a big way, causing everyone to, again, react in a way that's so big and so immense. And again, you need to internally go back, ask if the emotion is legitimate, and if it's not, if it's illegitimate, what part? Because if it's illegitimate, there is a source that's inside of you where this is coming from. So what is the root cause of this? Where is this coming from? And if you can find the root cause, then you can begin to say, okay, that's the original cause. The external thing is just the universe mirroring back to me. It's a mirror. So I don't need to focus on the people and let my wrath and my anger and my rage goes toward these individuals and whatever the external circumstances. I need to focus on me. And I need to accept that I'm imperfect. And whatever happened to me, I share karma with this or that person. And whatever that karma is, it's resolved now. Because I don't have hatred toward them. I have accepted that whatever they needed to teach me, I have learned it. And I need to move on.
That brings a question to my mind, Pierre. Once you've gone through this process, you have understood, let's say, an antagonist's trigger. You've recognized that part of it that exists in you. You've dealt with your part of that equation, and it helps you to bring compassion toward your previous antagonist. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to become your BFF, right?
No.
you may want to just move on and not be caught up in that web, and and this is the other part of the question that I have about that, and if I may just relate it to a personal experience. So years ago, there was a pianist and I. We were supposed to get together to rehearse some repertoire. And on the phone, on our first introduction, that pianist seemed very distant and almost antagonistic. And I thought, oh, this is not going to be easy. But when it came time to go to that pianist's home, I decided that I was going to have in my heart that this pianist was the most wonderful person I'd ever met, that it was going to be the most beautiful collaboration, and that I loved her, unconditionally. And when I arrived, the attitude from that pianist was so totally different.
Mm.
It was, and I don't know if this is the part of the healing process that is then incumbent upon us. Once we understand the other person's triggers, we've healed them in ourselves. Do we then channel that back to that person so that they're no longer caught up in the web of their feelings, their
Yes. Okay, so I love what you just said, Janice, because that example is illustrating the true power of social intelligence. Because you picked up something from her, and through your mirror neuron, you were able to entrain her into a different frequency and vibration by sending love, because love is the ultimate nullifier. And by doing this, you change the dynamic. You have to remember that normally speaking, normal torsion field, without us asking the guardian to come in, it's 8 feet in diameter, which means before I enter a room, my mirror neuron already knows what's happening in the room. And because of this, you can begin to, if your energy, again, if you have unclotted enough of these knots that exist in your energy body will send 16 feet, it will go 32 feet, it will extend, it will get much bigger, because you don't have all of these this mind that are in it anymore. And once you get that big, you're able to actually, through that social intelligence, shift the dynamic. You not only read what's in the room, but you can also project a higher purpose to the people around you. So you're right, Janice. That was a perfect example, perfect illustration of projecting that higher purpose into a situation that could have been much more combative and difficult for the two of you.
And yet, I wonder if the opportunity had presented itself of not having any future collaborations or conversations with this person, would that have been a better way to go so as not to walk into a possible fiery situation? So like with your father, you were able to transition to being a supporter for him, but and that was allowing him then maybe not to be as combative to you, but possibly in that similar relationship to my story.
Yeah.
I guess it's worth trying, although there's some volatile relationships. Surely I can think of a couple right at the top of my head where you just need to walk away.
Yes, you will know, because they are, okay. So the opposite side of this is that once you have resolved in you the karma that you have with the other person, this is again social intelligence. A lot of time the person, and if you have resolved it and you're projecting love and the understanding that love cancels everything and so on and so forth, a lot of time the other person is not ready to accept the love. They are marinating in their rage and their anger. Okay? And at that moment, they will, you have to walk away, or the situation will be that you, both of you have to separate from each other because they have to find somebody else to put their hook in. In other words, if you were +5 and they were -5, and the dynamic remained like this for multiple lifetimes, and now that your frequency is 0 because you have resolved it, and they're still -5, they need a +5 because they haven't resolved it in themselves. So they will seek somebody else to continue the same toxic relationship. Now, what you said about the way that relationship with that pianist, this is the way great healers and great ascended masters and teachers and saints on earth comes in and they heal people. In other words, if you're a true leader, you can walk into a room and through that social intelligence, you can radiate such love and such entrainment through your own mirror neuron. The light, like I said before, may the peace, the serenity, and the neutrality that I know pass on to everyone and my circle of influence. If I can radiate that out and I can project it, then suddenly the people around me are beginning to react in a completely different way because I have illumined my environment. I have illumined them.
Well, so then, pardon me for just asking one more question. Sometimes those people are being used as a puppet for non-physical, let us say, without naming them, antagonists and challengers. And maybe it's better not try to project that love in that situation and be entangled in a bigger web.
Okay, love, what you cannot project is specific intention. Love is the background that creates everything. If you project love towards a flower, it doesn't mean that you're entangling the flower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you are neutral to everything that's around you, and you're projecting that neutrality, it will not affect your karma, your connection to anything or anyone around you.
Mm-hmm. And it won't engage you in any.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If it's you are projecting a specific outcome, like I need you to be nice to me, I need you. But if you're projecting this ideal and the concept of kindness and love and compassion and neutrality, none of that will be according.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. After all, the whole universe was created as an act of love. Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry. I have two comments here.
Mhm.
One of them is I had posted on the group chat a video regarding a little boy, 4 years old, that was before he goes to bed, that was going through his emotion of the day with his mother, and the mother was explaining it to him what it is that a 4-year-old, but this is so funny you had the class today all in emotion, and I will encourage anybody to go and look at it. That's one thing. The other thing is I just received a note here from Mimi. I just want the community to be aware. The FDNY today put a note that requiring all EMS and FDNY people and the hospital to wear a mask because of the surge of COVID and the RSV and the flu. So I'm just letting this out so you guys know that it's really it's not mandatory, but I will encourage everybody to wear it.
Okay,
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
thank you. Yeah, so the social intelligence is really important, and through that social intelligence, emotional intelligence and social intelligence, it will take you into the last piece, which have been trying to guide you into when we did the training, which is the spiritual intelligence. This is when you begin to connect to the 144 or 143 other aspects of your monad, each one of which exists in a different feeling and emotion. So you have 12 core elevated spiritual emotion, and then each of these 12 fragment into another 12. Let's say one of them is peace. You go into meditation, you connect to the fragment of yourself that's connected to the peace, and you ask it to teach you the peace that you know. Teach me the peace that you know. If I were at peace, what would I feel? What would I know? What would I understand in me? And you wait for an answer to come again to the heart and mind coherence. What happens if you do this over time is that you will begin to feel or sense words. They will come as words or sentences at first. For example, peace may have in it an aspect. In other words, that peace that you see as one emotion is actually made up of 12 other higher emotions connected. And that peace is going to show up at some point with pass out what these other feelings are. So you may be focusing on peace, and all of a sudden you have a feeling or a word. At first, the feeling may be abstract. And I keep asking my student when they're doing this, it's not a crossword puzzle. Don't worry about the words, but be aware of the feelings that are behind them. At first, it's like say something there. Something is there. I don't know what that something is, and it may take months, and eventually it will translate into a word or a sentence, and it might be peace or serenity as a contributory or rather tributary aspect of what peace is. So I wanted to mention this as the last piece of this. Ultimately, our entire monad, which is the collective of 144 that you belong to, existed in these powerful emotions. And in the process of you descending as a soul fragment, you actually shattered and drop all of these other 143 other things elsewhere. And you're just nothing more than one of the incarnated aspect. And the whole point of ascension is to remember and reintegrate all these pieces together. Any questions, any comments? All right. If there are no questions or comments, I know that last piece is a whole class in itself that I just mentioned, but I wanted to mention it because we focused a little bit more attentively to emotional intelligence, and on the back end with social intelligence. That part, which maybe next week we will cover it, which will be the spiritual intelligence. All right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll do our closing meditation right after that. 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're muted. I
Oh, yes. Thank you. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your entire awareness emanate from your heart space and notice what you noticed. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Become aware of any feelings, emotions, and sensations that may show up for you. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Is it one feeling or a combination of multiple feelings? What is the first feeling? What is the second feeling? Are there any other feelings? What need exists in me that this feeling is trying to fulfill? What is the root cause of this feeling? What false belief is this feeling connected to? Beloved God, I beseech you to show me an ascended way to fulfill this emotional need. Show me an ascended and aligned belief system that will help me heal and repair this arrested development.
Help me find a way to repair, heal, and transmute this feeling into an ascended reaction, a transcendental emotion. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Pierre. I was able to go deeper into lower levels of, deeper levels, I should say, of an older feeling or program that I've been working on for a long time. And I think I've got to the core now. Thank you.
Terrific. I'm so happy for you, Janice.
Mm,
That was very fruitful. Beautiful.
yes.
Any other comments or questions before we close?
I want to thank you all for being with me today. I want to thank everyone on Patreon for subscribing and supporting us. If you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel. And next week we will talk about, we will focus more on the spiritual intelligence part. Deep love, everyone. Good night. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone. Love you.
Good night. Love you all. Bye.